Hello and welcome back to the March to Independence. I'm Steve Friedman, your host. I'm a parent, advocate, and author, and I'm excited to continue to provide you with a variety of information that's important and essential for parents and families of people with Down syndrome. Today, our session is about financial planning. Now, I will tell you in advance, this is probably the most complex session that we have, and it's not going to be extensive in 10 or 15 minutes, but the intent is to raise the awareness of different items that you as parents and caregivers really need to know. I myself found a lot of this information was new when I first started to research it. And in my experience and engaging with a variety of families with Down syndrome across the country, that practically everyone is missing some parts of the formula. So it's really important to be aware and plan accordingly in order to ensure that your loved one gets the maximum benefits available and that we protect that income stream for the long term. So our chart today on the screen is the best way to kind of introduce a lot of these things. Many people are going to be familiar with some aspects of it and some will be new. And we'll talk at the end about different ways you can learn more about financial planning and the benefits available to you and your loved one. First, let's talk about federally managed Social Security benefits. So there's two aspects to federally managed Social Security benefits. First are financial and the second are medical services. On the financial side, there's insurance that's generally termed RSDI, retirement, survivorship, and disability. These are usually pieces of insurance that the parent, in this case, would have or would be eligible for if we get injured on the job and aren't able to work, then we get Social Security benefits. When we retire, all the money that we've paid in for years, we get back as Social Security benefits during retirement. When we pass away, then our loved ones will typically get Social Security benefits that were previously in our name. So it's important that we're aware of those as parents and guardians, that we get those. What is most important for our discussion today is that our loved one with Down syndrome is eligible to receive those if and when we receive them. So if we as a parent happen to be on disability, if certain conditions are met, then our loved one will also receive Social Security benefits. It won't typically reduce the amount of benefits that you're eligible for or receive. It's additional funds that the government pays to your loved one with Down syndrome in this case. So it's important that we're aware of these. If any of you have disabilities or you are retired, you should be checking with your financial planner and making sure that your loved one is getting their additional benefits that come from your retirement. Whenever a parent passes away, then additional Social Security benefits are typically available to the surviving person with disabilities, i.e. your loved one with special needs and Down syndrome. So these are also important things to remember. Perhaps the most important thing with regard to these benefits, which your self-advocate is generally eligible for, is that they have to make sure that they remain connected to your Social Security account. And in order to do this, and you'll hear this a lot in today's discussion, in order to do this, you have to make sure that you protect this eligibility in two critical ways: the income maximums for your loved one and the asset maximums. So the income maximum is basically that your child or adult with Down syndrome can't earn more than a certain amount. And if they do over a certain period of time, then they would relinquish their eligibility or connection to your Social Security benefits. That number varies a bit, but it's really critical to understand what that is, and we'll talk more later about how you can find out more details. The second aspect that is critical to be aware of is asset maximums. So your adult or child with Down syndrome should not have more than a certain amount of assets. That's typically around $2,000. Those assets certainly will include bank accounts in their name, but it could be stocks and bonds in their name. It could be cars or other assets. It could be funds that that are provided to your loved one through a will from somebody else. If they will your loved one a certain amount of money, suddenly that becomes assets. Could be through a credit card. If they have a credit card with, say, a $2,000 limit, then those are funds that are available to your son or daughter and would likely violate the conditions and eliminate the eligibility for certain benefits, including this connection to the parents. So, very important that you're aware of the income and asset maximums to protect this stream. The other aspect of federally managed benefits is Medicare. And so, at certain ages, your son or daughter would be eligible for Medicare. And that will take care of generally their health needs for the long term, including prescriptions and so forth. The state managed benefits may be more familiar to many parents regarding your self advocate, but here too there are various loopholes and a lot of details that need to be considered. First, SSI or Supplemental Security Income. So this is managed, this is Social Security, the same as we know it, but it's managed at a state level. So there are some differences on each state, but generally there's a lot of consistency. Your loved one should be eligible for SSI as they turn 18 and will receive a certain amount of funds in their name and account. Here again, very important to manage their income level and their asset level in order to preserve the eligibility for SSI. If they make too much, then they will violate this. You may choose to do that if you believe that your son or daughter can earn enough income to sustain themselves for the long term, but it's a very important decision that you have to make. Takes a lot of money for any of us to live and take care of ourselves. So you have to be sure that your son or daughter could actually make enough income for the long term to sustain themselves and not need SSI or these other benefits. If you believe they're going to need it, we certainly do, and I think most parents would agree that they will need it, then you need to make sure that you preserve that eligibility. They can still work several hours, many hours in most cases. However, there are limitations to how much they should be able to earn in order to continue to qualify for SSI, and you need to make sure you know that amount before they start working. The asset maximum that we talked about earlier applies here as well, so they need to make sure they maintain a certain asset level. They can still have a debit card. That doesn't really apply like a credit card does because it's not money on hold for them. They can still have a bank account. Here, I would advocate that they have an ABLE account, and you can find out more information about that on our website and in the material we'll talk about later. But an ABLE account will allow them to have some assets, which oftentimes it could be earned income from work or other sources that don't count towards the asset maximum, and so helps to preserve their SSI eligibility. The other aspect of state managed are medical and services. Medical is Medicaid. So most of your loved ones, once they're 18 at least, would be eligible for Medicaid. However, you have to maintain your eligibility for SSI in order to get Medicaid. So if you violate the income or asset maximums, not only do you lose SSI, but you can also lose Medicaid. And Medicaid generally will provide you with health care without any premiums usually, including prescription drugs. Very critical and very expensive these days. Every state has a budget for their own needs and necessities. That could include everything from social services to infrastructure and roads to fire and police services. All these sort of things are managed at a state or local level, and so they all have a budget. One line item in that budget will be social services for those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And that line item varies very much by state. And the other aspect that is important to note is how they allocate that line item, whatever that amount is for each state, definitely varies. So in some cases, practically everyone that qualifies gets services and funds through their state managed social services program. but but because they service everybody who's eligible, those funds are oftentimes limited and not as much as a family or an individual would say they need in order to take care of their individual with Down syndrome in this case. In other states, they provide more. They assess what the need is of that individual and they provide that amount. But because that amount can be much more, the states don't have enough money. So the way they allocate that is by a wait list. So, for instance, our daughter Gwendolyn has been on the wait list for about 12 years, and she remains on the wait list, and it appears she probably has about 5 to 10 years before she would get off the wait list for these services. That's a significant waiting period. So there's a lot of information you need to recognize. Oftentimes there's a couple of different programs, but they typically will include things from transportation, respite care, and therapy at an older age to also day programs and housing. So all these can be extremely expensive. So making sure you get social services is critical. So be aware of what those social services are and how you can apply for those and what kind of waiver programs are available in your state. In most cases, certainly where there are wait lists, I would encourage you at the earliest of ages, even right after birth, to get your child on the waiver program. In the book, The Essential Guide for Families with Down Syndrome, which we'll reference later, there are lots of resources and links so you can find out more about your state's specific waiver program and how you can apply. There's many details to this, so it's certainly not something we can cover in a 10 or 15-minute video, but it is something that I would encourage everyone to learn more about because there are a lot of benefits that you and your loved one has earned and should be able to qualify for, but you have to make sure you know the details in order to get the services and benefits that you're eligible for and maintain them. There are 3 ways you can continue to learn. First is you can check out our website, beyonddownsyndrome.net, beyonddownsyndrome.net. There, when you do subscribe, you get the free independent worksheet that's available. So it's a worksheet that you can download, you can adapt, you can modify, you can send, you can save. And it helps you to track your roadmap for your individual family situation for independence and all the aspects that we're talking about here on these videos and that are also inside the Essential Guide book. So I'd encourage you to do that. In addition to that, at the website, there are lots of other articles. There's resources and information that are available to you for your journey. Second aspect is to continue to check out our March to Independence a YouTube video series that continues throughout March and remains available through our YouTube channel. So please check that out. A wide variety of topics available and really important for each family. And thirdly is to also take a look at the Essential Guide for Families with Down Syndrome, Plans and Actions for Independence at Every Stage of Life. This really was created because we went through this independence journey, our family, and we learned so much, and we recognized through engagement with so many other families that they, along with ourselves, were finding we were missing information. And this financial topic here today is the most common area where families are just missing information that can cost them literally hundreds of thousands of dollars or more, and the opportunity to become as independent as possible. So check out the details today, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Continue your march to independence. Thanks.